I would be remiss without starting off and noting why recovery projects haven't started a lot at companies and cost saving projects don't happen a lot. It is odd. I mean, most companies and people would say to themselves, why wouldn't every company be doing this right now? But there are some of these little dirty secrets. So again, for those that are wondering, yeah, why aren't we doing cost recovery in every area of our company right now? But first off, people kind of get in the way, and probably in recovery what's been said is that the company itself is the impediment really to doing a lot of these cost saving projects. And from a people point of view, again, companies made up mostly of people, your egos may be hurt. The focus may just not be on saving 1% or 2% in a spend. That's not really, as sexy, let's say, as, maybe meeting a new sales target or market growth in the new year, etc. Again, there also are a lot of negative thoughts towards a bounty service of doing some of the cost recovery. Not all of it has to be a bounty service too, but with that said, a lot of times folks too view audits and reviews as a bit confrontational, and in a way there is, but at the same time, most companies and people that do this work, they actually try to make it to be more showing how they are being proactive in actually finding the savings at these companies. So from a process point of view, why these things don't happen, it isn't something that's normally allotted to a department. So if you are, let's say, in the accounts payable department, you don't have a lot of time to look for duplicate payments or to look, say, for vendor duplication in your database. It's not something that is usually on your objectives for the year. Paying the bills, getting reconciliations done, etc. That is the work of that department. And again, these types of things aren't always allotted. I also think that there is a perception out there that doing these projects will take up a lot of time, and that's really not the truth at all. And there is some time in status meetings and taking a look at claims and deciding whether or not that they're valid or not. And from a technology point of view, the lack of data access is rampant at companies these days, and I find that without that data, it is very difficult to be able to make the right decisions and be able to do the cost recovery project in the first place. The data itself, it provided in a good manner where people understand it, can lead to a much better result at the end. And as we'll talk later with scoring especially, you can do a lot more to get rid of false positives if you really work at it. From an overcoming obstacle point of view, I think there are the three categories: people, process, technology. From a company point of view, high level, most companies are getting over it and saying for cost savings, cost recovery, you need to realize that audits are preventative maintenance, it's healthy, it's proactive, you should view it as a proactive thing, and that's okay. Now, CFOs can push that more than CEOs because the CEO is worried more about the new business target, etc. From a process point of view, most of the recovery audits out there should be 95% auditor, 5% company, and hence why I suggest it to a lot of companies. What I do find is that from many departments out there, many internal audit departments out there, have used the cost recovery auditor as an extension of themselves, and since they're doing 90% of the work, it isn't that hard to do that and get it in a free fashion because you're working on a contingency basis. So from a process point of view, what I find is you need to get ahead of it. The more you let the savings sit out there, the longer the recovery can just disappear. So from a process point of view as well, there needs to be a push towards making it a part of the process. From a technology point of view, internal audit is in just a great position to extract that information. So one of the things is just to be able to kind of learn from the recovery providers along the way, and as they're doing their work, and also maybe make that part of your own technology. So if there are any internal auditors out there, I find that internal audit is the best department to manage recovery. From an independence point of view, there are stories where people will say in a recovery audit status update, the recovery auditor will say, we found $3 million, and isn't this wonderful? And the company department head at the time in that meeting will say a lot of times, what can I do to get rid of that exposure? Because that's going to make it look like I wasn't doing my job, I was asleep at the wheel. How do I get rid of this? And without internal audit sitting hand in hand with that recovery auditor, sometimes those things can get brushed under carpets. So it does make a lot of sense to have the internal auditor a part of those meetings, and if you can. And their independence, therefore, is really one of the key things, and many times they're one of the few departments that really has the company interest fully at heart, and committed to that 100%. So now, the other thing is, as noted before, you can, internal audit is in a great position because they can actually leverage the recovery auditor and learn from that organization, and then again be able to maybe automate that into their own department. Now, from a data access point of view, internal audit is in the best position to get data, and a lot of times will really press organizations to get the appropriate data, not just whatever they can kind of knock out quickly. And that really helps, because the better the data, the better the project. From an improved company learning point of view too, I mean, they're in a good position to report to the audit committee, the board, etc., how in a collective fashion how the organization is saving money and how they're sort of tracking it as well, and being a part of that. Again, they don't have to, but in many ways I find they're in a good position to do that and try to keep reminding people when, say, the spending patterns or the process is getting out of control, to be that organization that reminds them and says, remember the recovery projects we did that saved all this company money, but it showed that we had a weakness. Let's not get back into that situation. So in conclusion, on this section, looking at some of the actual political dynamics, but also where the internal auditor fits in and how it compares to a recovery auditor, kind of wrapping this up. The recovery auditor makes their living generally by finding money, and the more money they find, the more money they make. And they use a lot better data techniques because they're doing this across so many other companies that they're able to learn that. However, I find at any company, you need to customize that approach for yourself. So that's something that I find the data tweezer needs to be, either used from them, from that organization, or from a learning from them, but also then customized for that organization. I also think there's a lot more manual time in this, and most internal audits that I do that are a cost-saving nature are maybe a 50 or 100 unit sample. It's not that good to really find the money. I mean, you have to be doing thousands unit samples and sending out thousands of letters to vendors, etc. And that's, again, they're willing to make that investment because they're making their money on what they find, not what you can really extrapolate off of a small sample.